Hey everybody, thanks for joining our latest uh, installment of Ask the Broker Elite Training. Today we're going to be talking about a buyer's journey and how to be an effective real estate agent. This is part two of what I believe is going to be a three-part series. We'll see how it turns out. It may turn out to be a four-part series. Before we jump into it, quick shameless plug. If you're watching this video somewhere else and you want to learn more about Miranda Executive Realty, scan the QR code. Agents, please feel free to share that QR code. And a quick disclaimer that, I'm the real estate broker, Joseph Miranda, broker owner of Miranda Executive Realty, but that's about where my expertise ends. I am not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. We are not here to give you financial, legal advice, or really advice otherwise. These are just best practices for myself, how I've run my business in the past. Everything that we say is really just it's recommendations on how to run a real estate business. So jumping into it, part two, a buyer's journey, how to become an effective buyer's agent. So just a quick recap on what we spoke about on part one. We always talk about what is the real estate agent's job, right? What are the things that a real estate agent should be doing? And when we look at the big overview of what they should be doing, it's these five categories right here. A real estate agent on a daily basis should be lead generating. Real estate agent on a daily basis should be following up on leads. Real estate agent on a daily basis should be going on appointments, right? You should be writing and negotiating contracts. And you'll be lucky if ever you are on a daily basis closing sales, right? But you can pretty much guarantee that if you do those first four, lead generation through writing and negotiating contracts, you're going to get to that fifth, right? And that's what we're here to teach you on the buyer side. We talked about this a lot from the seller side, being that we're in a buyer's market right now. And I think the real estate market is about to move in a different direction. Now would be a really vital time to start attracting buyers and start working with buyers, because I think things are about to get really exciting in real estate. So we've talked about the first three, or mostly about the first three. Quick recap on those three, right? Some of the things that we hit is number one, how to generate and follow up on leads, right? We talk about that all the time. You have to know how to generate leads. If you can't generate a lead, you're not in business in the first place. If you're generating leads and you're not following up with them, then you just wasted that lead, right? We've talked about how to prepare and attend buyer appointments. Prepare for and attend your buyer appointments. So, you don't want to just show up. You need to be prepared. Proper planning prevents poor performance, right? You want to be professional, show up looking professional, being professional, just having a professional demeanor about yourself, and you need to be on time. Understanding the different agency agreements, if you don't know the difference between single agent and transaction broker, you definitely need to understand that, because, there are ethics that are involved in that. And then, screening and following up, obviously. So one thing I want to hit real quick is, let's step back here a little bit, go back to going on appointments, right? There are certain rules, and maybe some of this, maybe all of it is common sense. Again, I'm here to tell you my best practices, the way that when I was actively selling real estate, the way that I would conduct, and the way that I would carry myself, and in everything that I do, I create rules. This is the way that works for me. This is the way that I feel like I sell real estate the right way. My right way may not be your right way, right? Number one, legal, ethical, and moral, right? You've got to hit at least those three, but everything else, you've got to come up with your own rules. My first rule, be punctual, be on time. In fact, maybe even be a little bit early. You need to show up a little bit early. The customer may not be early. The customer might actually even be late, right? But we are what? We are the professional. We need to be on time. A rule that I've always taught my team is, it is okay if you have to wait on your customer to arrive because they're late. It is not okay if your customer has to wait on you because you're running late, right? Why? Because we are the professional, right? We are the ones This is our job. This is our career. This is what we do day in and day out. Home buyers, that's not their job. That's not their career. So you're going to have different personalities, right? Be the professional. Anticipate needs, right? Be prepared for your showings. We talked about, for example, a checklist of things that you should bring on an appointment. Tissues, toilet paper, flashlight, right? Any other needs? Are you working with a buyer that has handicap needs, right? Somebody who has special needs. We need to anticipate these so that we can be prepared and have the showing be as smooth as absolutely possible, right? Something else with being a professional: stay calm. Always be calm. Do not let your emotions take over anything. Negotiating can be very difficult. Negotiating with your own customer can sometimes be the most difficult thing. You know that it's in their best interest to do this, and yet they refuse because of this, right? Well, don't take it. It's not personal. Don't take it personal. This is a professional decision. You have to detach yourself from the outcome. You cannot be attached to any specific outcome because you're not the customer. You're not the buyer. You're the agent, right? You are the guide. You are the professional. You are the one that is there to assist them through this process. But it's not your dream. It's not your goal, right? It's their dream. It's their goal. You are there to help them achieve their dream and their goals. So don't take it personal. Boundaries are huge. Everybody needs to figure out their rule on boundaries. If you've ever heard my voicemail, it'll tell you that I return calls between noon and 1 and 5 and 6. Every day I return that. Check my voicemails somewhere in there. I'm just kind of prompted to do that now. It's my own biological clock will tell me, it's 12:15, and I'll check my voicemails, right? A little reminder pops up and tells me to check the voicemails. But you need your own rules and your own boundaries. Do you work at 9 o'clock at night if your customer calls you? Are you, do you have a rule about prospecting? We've talked about this plenty before. You need a prospecting schedule. Call every day between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Well, if you were to get an appointment at 9:30, what's your rule on that? Would you skip prospecting to go on that appointment? Or would you tell them that, I'm sorry, that time is actually blocked out for something else, and try to get a different time? Rules, boundaries. What are you willing to accept from others, and what are you not willing to accept from others? And again, going back to stay calm even under pressure. Never scold a client, right? Again, it's the client. It's the client's dream. It's the client's goal. The client is allowed to have feelings and emotions, but you, as the agent, as the professional, are not allowed to have feelings and emotions, right? And you don't need to be cold and disconnected. But again, this isn't about us. This is about them and finding their needs, right? So let's just review, and this is going to be quick because we all know this, and then we're going to jump into writing and negotiating contracts, right? So we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to write and negotiate contracts, things to think about, ways to avoid errors, things like that. But first, understanding there are, I don't know how many different types of buyers out there, right? You've got first-time home buyers, you've got upgrade home buyers, you've got downgrade home buyers, you've got empty nesters, people that are relocating from a different area, you've got luxury buyers, landlords, house flippers, people that are buying vacation or second homes, right? Cash, finance, commercial, business. I mean, there are so many different types of real estate buyers out there, right? This is really just a short list on, the different types of buyers. But the reason we created this slide here, and even the next slide, which has some more, is that, going back, you need to know and anticipate that buyer's needs. Every type of buyer or every profile buyer that you're going to be working with is going to be looking for something a little bit different, right? Your vacation second home buyer is going to have very different interests than a first-time home buyer, right? A house flipper, someone who flips houses, has a very different criteria than, somebody who's empty nesting and moving into a smaller home. So number one, when you're out with buyers or when you're preparing to meet with them, you need to know your customer, know the other person, know who you're working with, what are going to be their trigger points, what are going to be their pain points, what is it that, and you can outright just ask them, right? What's the goal in this process? Maybe you think you know, but maybe you don't know. I mean, it's safe to assume if you're working with a landlord, they want income, right? But maybe it's more than just income. Maybe they need a tax deduction, right? Maybe they're looking for a 1031 exchange, right? So there's, no matter what it is, always dig deeper, always try to find, that underlying need or that underlying want that is behind the customer and what they're looking for. All right, so shifting gears, let's now shift forward, writing and negotiating contracts, right? So this is no longer really about the customer, in as much that, it is about the customer with what they want, the price, things like that, but this is not about the customer. Let's talk about how to write and submit a strong offer. Your offer, your contract, the as is that you submit will tell the story to the listing agent about how experienced or even maybe how easy or difficult this transaction with you is going to be. If you're a professional, you know how to fill out a contract. It's really just filling in the blanks, right? But did you actually read the contract? Step number one, read the contract. Before you even send the contract to a customer to sign it, read it, understand it, be able to explain the contract, right? That's real estate 101. When we onboard new agents into this brokerage, part of their onboarding is to read the contracts. Because if you're on the phone and you're prospecting and a customer asks you a contract question, you better be able to answer it. You better be able to answer it at a high level, logically, in a way that makes sense to the customer, right? So after you've read the contract, right, you need to know what information to collect, right? What do you need to know about the property? Not yet about the contract, but what do you need to know about the property, right? You're going to call the agent. Hey, customers thinking about writing an offer. Number one, is the property still available? Do you have any offers? Right? But also other things that maybe your customer told you were important. Make sure you don't waste your time and, more importantly, your customer's time by writing a contract for a property that doesn't even fit their needs in the first place. They have a large dog. Well, verify, is a large dog acceptable, right? If they have a large pit bull dog, can we have a large dog, but also what people consider an aggressive breed dog, right? A lot of this information you might want to get directly from the homeowner or the homeowners or condo association. The agent is as good as the information they've been given, and anybody that's listed a home, you already know that the homeowner is not necessarily an expert on all of these things, right? So make sure that you understand all of this. Does your customer own a large truck or maybe a plumbing company with the plumbing company branding all over the side of the van? Will they be able to park that in the community if it's a condo? Will they be able to park that in the driveway if it's a gated community, right? If it's a homeowners association, maybe they can. Do they want to rent this at somewhere down the road? Can they rent it upon move-in, after a year, after 2 years, ever? Can they ever rent it? Verify the fees, the association fees, especially if they have a mortgage. Because if the association fees are wrong, it could, and if they're already on a narrow margin for their debt to income ratio, a surprise by a couple $100 on the association fees might just be enough to kill the deal, right? The application process, there's a lot here. There's probably more, but before you write and send the offer, it would behoove you to verify basic information, to verify information that, is going to be a deal breaker if it's not correct, right? And this is just a little bit. It goes back to know your customer, right? Like, why would you even take somebody who wants to be a landlord into a property that you can't rent the first year? And there's communities I know of off the top of my head, some buildings you can rent first year, some buildings you can't. So don't assume because you're in a neighborhood or in a like a gated, development that you can rent, just because one building you can rent first year, that every building in there you can rent it first year, because that's not always the case, right? Do your homework. Why? Because you're the professional, because we're the professional, right? Number two, title company, right? Title company is going to be an integral part of your team. Now, Broward, Miami, right? That's going to default to 9C3 in the contract. So that's Miami-Dade Broward Regional Provision. Most of, in that case, the buyer chooses. Pretty much everywhere else in the state of Florida, I believe, seller chooses title. So, if you're Broward, Miami, then buyer is going to choose title. If you're anywhere else, seller's going to choose title. At that point, you'll have to decide, is it worth it for your buyer maybe to obtain separate legal counsel? Maybe not. But if you're choosing the title company, or if you're recommending the title company to your buyer, make sure it's somebody that you stand behind. And if you can't stand behind them, then don't make a recommendation. Or if you can't stand behind them, make 2 or 3 recommendations and let them choose. Who do you want to use, right? Because not all, just like real estate agents, just like mortgage lenders, not all title companies, not all title people are equal, right? So you gathered the basic information. What's the next thing? Well, you need some idea on what to offer, right? Like, what really drives me crazy about real estate agents is when they just kind of pull a number out of the air, or when the customer throws a number out there, or the customer pulls a number out of the air, and then the real estate agent says, oh yeah, let's just offer that amount. And it happens, right? Maybe somebody that's listening to this right now has done that. I don't know, right? But that's not the right way. At bare minimum, send them comparable sales, right? Like, isn't that the right thing to do, so that the customer can make an informed decision on the price that they're going to offer? Isn't that better than just throwing a number out there? Customer's happy with the number, but it ends up being too high, and then it doesn't appraise, and now you have an issue, right? It is your job as the agent to give advice on how much or how little the customer should offer. How many times have you done a CMA for a buyer and you realize that, holy cow, this house is way overpriced, right? It's pretty simple. You can watch our CMA training. That might be, I will warn you, one of the most boring trainings I've ever done in the history of all of these trainings, but it's also informative. And it walks you through step by step exactly how I do a CMA. It's numbers based. It's fact based, right? It's not theory on what we do, right? Price per square foot. That's very simple. Finding, comparable properties in a comparable price per square foot, right? Trying to figure out how much is the water worth. If it's a condo, is it, worth more if it's 3 or 4 floors higher, or is it worth more if it's on the first floor, right? Figuring out these basic things and making small adjustments, right? Now, price and value, understanding the difference between price and value, because the price that a home is sitting on the multiple listing is not the same as the value of the house. Not usually, right? Value are your closed sales. You're going to determine value by what somebody has already paid for the property, right? Value is not how much it's offered for. I can sell you my $3,000 car, and I can put it on Craigslist for $33,000, right? My value is $3,000, but my price is $33,000. Nobody's going to pay that, right? Because they're going to know based on what it is that it's right. So do the same thing with real estate. Don't just pull a number out of the air. When you're at it. So when I'm at a showing with the buyer, they say, "What do you think we should offer?" I can't really tell you that. Let me go back. Let me go do some research. I'll send you the comparables, and we can come up with a strategy on what we would offer, right? And my strategy is going to be, well, how can I get you the best deal that I can argue based on the numbers and the data that I have in front of me? That's it. What's the best deal that I can argue? Because that's what we're doing. We're trying to come up with, okay, here's my argument, now let's hear yours. And what you'll find is oftentimes listing agents even just throw numbers out there. And when you say something and you say, well, what about this comparable? And they go, oh. And you can kind of like hear the gears begin to turn in their head, right? And you're like, okay, this person has no idea what they're doing. Great, I'm going to get a great deal for my customer. Or it's just going to completely fall apart because, well, this agent has no idea, what they're doing. But so you've done all your homework, right? You've done everything. You found out the details about the property. You've done an effective CMA. Everything looks good. Well, now what do you have to do? You have to fill out the contract. Like I said before, you have to read and understand the contract. This is like, yeah, it's literally a non-negotiable. There are too many agents in this industry. I have seen agents that have been selling real estate for years. They've been licensed for years. And I swear their comprehension and their knowledge about the FAR bar as is contract is sad. It is sad. So if nothing else, if you're a buyer's agent, the most commonly used contract from my experience is the FAR bar as is. There's also the crisp. There's another FAR bar that's not the as is, and they're all a little bit different. So make sure you understand the difference between them, right? Make sure you know the nuances between them, because the FAR bar non-as is contract will have inspection amounts already negotiated in there because it's not an as is, right? So if you don't read the contract, like let's say you're a listing agent and you didn't read it and you just send it, hey, sign this, here's your offer, here's your price, and you think it's at the as is because it's the FAR bar, it might not be. Well, customer might be in a bad situation. Maybe you can sneak a buyer's agent, sneak some inspection concessions in there right away, right? I don't know. But before you write the contract, just read it. Read the entire thing, front to back, top to bottom. If you have questions, ask your broker. Right, your broker should know the contract front to back. If your broker doesn't know, ask Irene. That's all I can say. Things to remember. All right, so you need to have kind of a flow of knowledge of, okay, you're on the phone or you're at the property. If you've written enough contracts, you know what to ask. How much do you want to offer? You have a title company. You should already know, are they cash or finance? You should already know if they're financing, what's their down payment? When do you want to close? How many days to inspect? I feel like 7 would be enough, right? These are the questions. These are the questions. These are the things that you need to know before you can even start writing a contract. A lot of it is public information, legal information, the address, the folio number, right? The county that it sits in, what's included with it. Things like that. Time for acceptance. Who cares, right? Like, I mean, that matters, but it's not vital. You're just going to determine that based on, how aggressive you want to be in the offer. You want to give them 1 day to accept or 3 days to accept, or a week or a month or a year. I don't know why you would, but you could. You put whatever you want, right? But it shouldn't exceed the closing date. But, like I put between 1 and 3 days to accept, but who cares about that? But purchase price is really important, right? And if you can get all of this information on one call or in one place, and then you put it in the contract and you get it out to your customer, guess what? You look like a hero. Like, wow, that's amazing. If you call like one-offs, hey, how much do you want to offer? Okay, cool. Got that. Do you have an escrow agent? Okay, got it. Are you cash or finance? Why the hell don't I know this already? I should know this. Oh, crap. Right. Okay, got it. When do you want to close? Okay. Like, it just looks better, and you look way more intelligent if you already know the questions to ask based on what needs to go inside the contract. So know what to ask in order to fill out the contract completely, right? Common sense. Other things, right? Addendum. It's not addendums. Okay, so that one drives me crazy. That one kills me. Every time I see or hear or read the word addendums, it kills me. Addenda is plural for addendum. Please remember that. right? But know these things, right? Know, and we'll show you a trick in a minute on how to know which addenda to add in to the contract, right? Additional terms. Are there any additional terms? So this is like a boilerplate additional term that we use in this office. Copy and paste it, right? Or if you're in our CRM, just drop it down, boom, and it pops in there automatically. Paragraph 19, I think. But additional terms, what else is there? Don't forget about your additional terms. If it's not in the contract, you better write it in there, right? Oh yeah, another thing that's not in here is paragraph 1D does not include a washer and dryer. So if you want the washer and dryer, you have to write washer and dryer in there. I don't know why they don't have the washer and dryer in there, but if you don't put that, and then you get to the walkthrough, and then the washer and dryer is gone, and the buyer's like, "Where's my washer and dryer?" You'll be like, "I don't know, man. They stole your washer and dryer. This is BS, man. I'm going to call the agent right now." And the listing agent's going to be like, "No, it's not in there." And you get like, "Well, hell, if it's not, I know it's in there. Let me just look it up here." And then you're going to look really stupid, right? So above all else, don't look stupid. And how do you not look stupid? You read the contract, right? Another way not to look stupid: do not fill in blanks if it defaults at your number, right? Paragraph 2A, right? The escrow deposit, right? If left blank, then 3. Do not put a 3 in there. For the love of God, do not put a 3 in there. Like, there's no reason. Maybe you think it looks better or it looks thorough, but it just looks silly. There's no reason, and I'll tell you what's going to happen. Someday you're going to get to an experienced agent, and you're going to send that offer, and that agent's going to say, "Why did you fill in all these blanks with what it already defaults at?" Right? And whatever the reason is, I don't know, but it's going to make the agent who filled in the blanks unnecessarily look like an amateur, right? If you want to do a 15-day inspection period, just leave it alone, because the as is says if left blank, then 15, right? So if left blank, then if you're going to just put the same number, then just don't put it at all. The only time you fill that out is if you want 5 days for escrow and you want 7 days for inspection, right? If it's going to be different than what already defaults in there, there's no reason to fill in that number. Contingencies. So this is where deposits are lost. This right here is literally where deposits are lost. So this grid or spreadsheet, whatever you want to call it, here is a portion of what our transaction coordinators use to follow timelines, right? This is just one portion, one version. But every day you should look at this, right? First deposit, second deposit, inspection, association application, association approval, mortgage, loan, right? Application, approval, title commitment, closing, appraisal. Every single one of these should be done before the date. And if it's not done before the date, then you need what? You need an extension, right? Get the extension. Be proactive on the extension. Don't wait until the day of or the day after, because if you wait until the day after the loan commitment to ask me for an extension on the loan commitment, I guarantee you're not going to get that extension. If you come to me the day after the closing date and ask me for an extension on the closing date, you might get an extension on the closing date because we want to close, but I guarantee you that you will still not get an extension on the loan commitment, right? If the loan commitment lapses, terminates the time, and we're 3 days before closing and you want an extension on closing, don't send me an extension on both. Just send me the extension for closing, because we will not extend your loan commitment. With me, the only chance you have of getting an extension on your loan commitment is if you were proactive about it, right? And if I call the lender and I know that, okay, if we don't give you more time, that's going to equal a loan denial. right? Like these are their time frames. These are the buyer and the agent's time frames. So they need to be hit. And if you need an extension on a loan commitment, there better be a reason why, right? And if you do, and if there is a reason why, then you better be proactive about it, right? You can change that. I think it defaults at 21 days. Maybe you want to put 30 days for a loan commitment. Put the loan commitment beyond the closing date. I don't care, right? Like it doesn't matter. But make sure you have enough time because these are the areas where deposits are lost. You pass the inspection time frame, you probably shouldn't come back and ask for concessions on an inspection, right? Or you shouldn't ask for repairs because you passed the inspection. If you said a week and you did the initial inspection and then you needed a specialist to come in and they're a couple days delayed and they got to get your report and you need more time, then you need to ask by day 5 or 4, right? Hey, inspection's done, but we need to do more follow-up. We need more time. Get more time. They're going to sign it at that point. But if you wait until day 8, probably not going to get it, right? I wouldn't give it to you, right? Maybe they would, maybe not, right? All right, so here's the trick with the riders and addenda, right? Oh, paragraph 19 is riders and addenda. Must be paragraph 20, that's additional terms. I misspoke earlier. Okay, paragraph 19. See how it says addenda, not addendums. When I finish filling out the as-is FAR/BAR contract, I read through every single one of these every time. And as I'm reading through them, I think to myself, which of these is applicable? I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten something like the FHA rider because it was an FHA buyer, but because I read through here, I'm like, oh yeah, I need this FHA rider, right? Like this right here will save you from looking really stupid. So make sure you do that. Now, where we put compensation agreement, just know that this is not your buyer agency agreement. Your buyer agency agreement does not need to attach to this contract. That's between you and the buyer. Compensation is, seller to broker, seller to buyer, like those, right? So these are where this matters, right? But make sure that you're using the appropriate. I'll tell you what, man, this document is probably the most important document in the entire contract. Why? Because this document is how we get paid. So if you get this wrong or if you miss it, you better hope the agent on the other side or the broker on the other side is nice and friendly, or maybe just doesn't know the difference, right? Because if you've missed that, then you've missed something, right? So coming back, when you finish your contract, always go through this. Always look at this, and you'll know, oh, that base payment, I better look up how old this house is, right? Oh, housing for older persons, I better put that, right? So just make sure, and then not everything's in here, right? Like a 1031 exchange, I think there's a rider for that, or there's something for a 1031 exchange. There used to be, right? So you've got your contract and you've got everything. Now what do you need to do? You need to make sure you have your proof of funds or your pre-approval, right? So part 1, we talked about the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. Know the difference. But in here, there's a reason why we get them, because we have to send that with the offer. If I get a cash offer and there's no proof of funds, then to me, it's not a complete offer. If I get a finance offer, but the lender pre-approval is not attached, to me, it's not a complete offer. Because before we would even, as a listing agent, before I would even accept an offer for finance, I would call the lender, right? And I would say, is this a qualification or an approval? I want an approval, right? A pre-qualification may also be a non-starter. A pre-qualification, it doesn't do anything, right? Like it runs their credit and then it takes a verbal application and that's it. So, make sure that, these are things probably you should get up front. As a buyer's agent, I would recommend it. If you're showing Yeah, desktop underwriter. Yeah, that is really the ideal situation. Have they been, have they been run through DU? Have you run them through DU? Yes, they have. Okay. Can you send me that? Some lenders will send that to you, right? Oh, and keep in mind, buyer's agent, that there's an addendum in the FAR bar as is that tells uh, the lender that they are to disclose anything that has to do with the mortgage or the buyer's ability to obtain the mortgage with the listing agent. So if the listing agent calls the lender can't say, I'm not going to tell you that, or I can't tell you that, because the buyer and seller both signed agreeing to that. So, again, it all boils down to read the contract so you don't look stupid. If you know what's in there, and I've had agents that have absolutely put barriers up and tried to get me, as the listing agent, to not talk to the lender. And I've even had agents that have emailed me and told me that I am absolutely forbidden to reach out. Actually, it was a broker. It was a broker owner that we did this deal with. And this broker owner forbade me, is that the right word? I don't know, from reaching out to the lender. And then, so I responded, basically, so are you as the agent unilaterally going over your buyer's head and the contract that your buyer signed and agreed to that allows me to reach out to the lender? Are you telling me that I cannot, right? Because an agent cannot make decisions or change things that both parties have not. So know the contract so you know what you can do, right? And she never made that argument again. But yeah, that one was a crazy one. I'll tell you, that might be one of the craziest deals I've ever done. Know your stuff, because I can't tell you this was a broker that we were working with and how much this broker did not know about the contract, right? I assume this broker probably never read the contract. Not a good thing if you're a broker. Okay, other thing, right? So we talk about, filling out the contract and how that's going to look, make you look better. Well, the entire package, right? Like, I don't know. I know that when I was working, really actively with buyers, there would be agents, and I'm not even kidding, not making this up. They would compliment me on the offer and how I sent it, how complete and thorough the contract is, with the proper writers, with everything, the documentation, everything that's necessary. That makes a difference. If they're between, if they've got two very similar offers, yours and another one, and yours is better written, and you have a better presentation of the offer, that might be the thing that makes the difference, because they know, or they assume, that by working with you, you understand the contract, you sent everything, you understand what a complete contract looks like, that it's probably going to be an easier transaction than this other person that maybe didn't send such a thorough or well-written contract, right? Maybe they put escrow, they filled in the 3, so the agent's like, okay, well, maybe this person doesn't know what they're doing, right? I don't know. Maybe not, right? All right, so you've gone through, you've submitted it, you have a clean, concise contract that you submitted to, to the other agent. And what happens, because it looks so amazing, it looks so beautiful, you did so good on the CMA in pricing and valuing this property that your offer got accepted, right? So, but your work's not done, right? Like, and actually, this is really the part where the real work begins. Looking at houses, showing houses, writing contracts, negotiating them. In my opinion, that's kind of the fun part, right? Everybody likes to look at houses. It's always fun, right? You can, and it's always interesting. You always see the things that you see when you're looking at houses, like, you won't see that anywhere else. A lot of fun, but your job's not done, right? You need to make sure now, okay, you got the contract back from the listing agent. Now you need to look over the contract, or have the transaction coordinator be a second set of eyes for you, right? So this is what you do next. Most important, make sure that you have an actual effective contract, right? Effective meaning everybody has signed and initialed next to every term and every line and every box that needs to be signed. If corrections were made, then initials need to be next to that. It doesn't really matter if the correction was made and like it was initialed somewhere else on that sheet, like later down the road. I don't know if you know what I mean by this, but if there's a change, just have it initialed. Just get it initialed, right? Make sure both sides initial next to it, right? Check the boxes to make sure that your addenda is included with the contract. That's really important. If you didn't check the box, I don't know, is that rider really part of the contract? Maybe it's arguable that it is, but let's not argue about it. Let's just check the box, right? Send everything to the lender. Here's the contract. Get that started, right? Like, don't assume that the listing agent did it. Don't assume that the buyer knows to do it. Make sure the lender has it. Start it right away. Here you go. Boom. Let's go. Looking forward to this. Buyer, you ready to do your inspection? Better do that right away, right? After the inspection's done, then you can order the appraisal. I mean, you can order it before if you want. I wouldn't recommend it because if it falls apart at inspection and then they have the appraisal done in the meantime, then not only did they lose their inspection money, but they also lose the appraisal money, right? So inspection, clear it or get very close to clear it, then order the appraisal. The rest of the mortgage process can continue. Not having an appraisal does not hold up the mortgage process, right? HOA and condo docs for review. Remember, 3 days to review it. Get those to your buyer. Make sure that they read them for what? Remember the things that they need to make sure of, the things that you called the association and ensured were in fact true, right? The pet policy, the parking policy, the rental policy. Review them, make sure. I've seen it where buyers haven't reviewed these policies and they ended up regretting it later, right? Get the application in. What's your timeline on the association application? Make sure that's done on time. And then make sure the escrow is done on time too, right? Again, these timelines, we watch them like a hawk. Why? Because that's where deposits are lost. Deposits are not lost unless the timeline is missed, right? If you follow through and you get it done and everything's done on time and everything's done right, then they retain their deposit. But if you miss the timeline, imagine like, you know, the buyer, you know, something happens and, you know, you find out that, well, they, you know, your buyer didn't make their escrow deposit, you know, until day 7, right? Like, what is that? You know, what's the implications of that? I don't know, right? But don't miss the timelines. Escrow is very, very important. And we all know, right? Don't, you know, make sure our customers know, don't wire any money without first verifying who it's going to, right? Like, make sure you're talking to your customer about that. This has been a big thing for like over a decade. That, you know, so our emails are extremely secure. We have 2-factor authentication, like it's mandatory. You can't even use your email unless that's set up. Like, it won't even let you log in until you set that up. But not everybody has that, right? And what happens is emails get hacked, and the hacker just watches the emails, watches the transactions, and then they find a way to stir up some panic, right? And then an email goes out that looks like it's from the agent, and it goes to the buyer. I need you to wire money to this account right away, right? Go right now. Go do it. Don't whatever, right? I don't know what they look like. I don't know. It's never happened to me, knock on wood. And it should never happen to one of our customers because we should inform them. Do not wire money without verifying where it goes first, right? And then they wire it. And once that money is wired, it's gone, man. It's gone. I don't know. Do people ever get it back? I don't know. I've literally spoken to agents who this has happened to. They've said, this has happened to me. And I'm like, oh, that sucks, right? Because if it happened to me, I would feel like I might need to somehow reimburse that customer with that money. And, you know, those wires are not always insignificant amounts. You know, even $6,000 or $7,000, you wouldn't want to have to reimburse that just because you didn't have a disclaimer on your email or just because you didn't tell the customer to verify over the phone, right? So you're in the watchtower. Make sure your customer knows all of the danger that lies ahead. Now, if your customer proceeds after you've warned them about the danger and they proceed and they get slaughtered, well, that's their own fault, right? But if you led them into the slaughter, or you knew that danger lies ahead and you didn't say anything, questionable. Whose fault is it, right? Updates. Updates. It is my job as the agent to make sure that my customer knows what's going on with their purchase. Even if what? Even if there is no update. What is your schedule? What is your calendar on how frequently you update your customer? If I haven't spoken to you for how long am I going to go before I give you an update that there is no update? That is the most important thing, because if your customer has to ask you for an update, then you have failed. Right? Hey, what's going on with my purchase? Oh, nothing going on. Okay, cool. Right? But they still had to ask. They shouldn't have to ask. Right? Number one, send that timeline to everybody. Get everybody in agreement. TCs love to do this back and forth. TCs also love to find mistakes in the other TC stuff. Right? So if they have a TC, make sure your timelines are correct, because more than once, they come back and, they want to be the hero for their agent. So they do that. Make sure your customer has the timeline. Make sure your customer understands the timeline. Very important. Read the contract, understand the contract, read the timelines, understand the timelines, right? Escrow letter, important. We do a weekly update. Nothing going on. That's your update. Cool, moving on, right? Just waiting to close. There's your update. Cool, moving on. Want to close early? No? All right. Then we're waiting, right? Anything urgent? Right away. It's urgent. It's urgent. It's urgent. If it's urgent, that means you do it right away. Drop everything, do it right away. Just take care of it. Get stuff done. And then follow-up is really important. Make sure everything's on time. Make sure everything's on track. Mr. Inspector, where's my report? Mr. Lender, are we looking good? Are we going to get an approval? Where are we at? Right? Where are we at with things? Make sure. Right? Again, all of the contingencies, all of your timelines, everything, track them. Track your timelines, right? Track deadlines, and get updates early, or extensions early. Extend early. Don't wait for an extension to come, to pass, or to be that same day. Hey, we were supposed to get the loan commitment today, but we can't get it. I need an extension. Well, what if the buyer, or what if the other party's out of town and they can't sign it? Well, now you only have one choice, really. You just send over a cancellation. And then you have to say, I don't want to cancel, but because I wasn't proactive on this, I need to send an extension and a cancellation. Maybe the other side wants to cancel, and because we didn't pay attention to that timeline, that property was lost, right? And that would be what? That would be unprofessional, right? So make sure that we are being professional and doing these things. A professional knows the contract, a professional knows the deadlines, a professional knows the consequences of not knowing the contract or the deadlines, right? This is our job. Lead generate, lead follow-up, going on appointments, writing and negotiating contracts, right? That's our job. If we can't do those, then we're not doing our job. And if we're really not doing them every day, then it may not be our full-time job, right? Lead generate, lead follow-up, go on appointments. Those should be pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, or maybe Tuesday through Sunday. I don't know, whatever your days of the week are. Take some days off. Everybody needs a day off, 2 days off. Take some rest. This isn't your life, right? This is your career, but not your life. But those things need to happen. If they're not happening, then we're not doing our jobs, right? Our job is not to run errands. Our job is not to get groceries. Our job is not to mop the floors. Our job is not to take a nap. Our job is not to have a glass of wine at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because you don't have any appointments. Our job is lead generate, lead follow, go on appointments, write, negotiate contracts. First three first two mandatory every day. If you do the first two every day, then the third one will follow. If you go on enough appointments, the fourth one will follow. And if you run enough contracts, the fifth one, closing those deals, will follow. It's a numbers game. How good are you? All right. So what's the call to action for this training? This is really simple. Like, this one is the easiest one. Some people have probably already done this. Number one, to get the most out of this training, you need to read and understand all contracts, riders, and addenda. Read and understand them. That's it. Reading comprehension. Read them, understand them. And number two, make sure you have a system for every transaction. So namely, just use our transaction checklist on every transaction. Track your own transactions. Even if you have a transaction coordinator, it's still your transaction, right? So you still need to, follow up and keep an eye on your transaction. So, but follow that transaction checklist. Follow your customers' timelines. Follow, your customers' contingencies. Don't let things fall between the cracks, and don't trust that a transaction coordinator is going to catch every single thing. Review your contracts, right? They are a second set of eyes. They are not the only set of eyes. So next training, we're going to talk about some negotiating tips. We're going to talk about closing the deal, and then we're going to talk about post-closing. So again, don't know how many of these we're going to squeeze into the next training. This could be a 3-part or a 4-part series. I'm actually really excited about the training that we have coming up after that, right? It's going to take us back to some of the basics, but I think for agents that are kind of stuck, hopefully it will help them to get unstuck, and it's going to introduce them to some of the philosophies and concepts of this brokerage, hopefully a little bit better. So that being said, does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns of anything that they've heard today or have not heard today? Go ahead, Lorna.
Joe, I have a question. I know you were talking about, I kind of possibly missed a few of it. You were talking about in the contract, right? So I know that as a list, if we have the listing, we can't ask for any financial information from the buyer's lender, but they are based on the agreement between the seller and buyer and based on what's in the contract. We can have a conversation about how the loan is progressing, what's going on with the loan, where we are, conditions to be met, yada, 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 right? That's what I know over the years. However, I remember there was this one situation and there was this, just like you were saying, their agents saying, oh, you cannot reach out, you cannot this, you cannot that. Now, I saw Irene put something up that says, I think you texted Irene, you said you cannot email the lender. You're not allowed to email the lender. Can you touch a little bit on that piece?
Yeah. Was there something in this? So there was something on this screen that said we cannot email the lender in this training?
No, I think Irene, MX administrator. Was this from you, Irene? Somebody wrote a message
No,
that says you're not allowed to email the lender.
Yep, that was me, Lorna. But what I'm trying to say is that was what we received from the agent. You cannot email the lender.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry.
My bad.
It
Okay,
was
no
it
worries.
was a
I was like,
misunderstanding.
I was like, oh, did something change? Because I did not know that. I thought you could text, you could call, you could email. Okay, good. So nothing changed. Okay, perfect. But however, there was this one time in this transaction, and the lender specifically said, I am not allowed unless the buyer signs off on something and tell me that I'm allowed. And we're like, no, you are allowed. You have to discuss. And he refused to give any kind of information about the loan. And this was the lender.
Yeah, and that's a really tough situation to be in. Irene, I don't know if you can find the as is and exactly where that is in there. We can put that paragraph up. Because I've run into that more than once, in a transaction where the lender or the agent tells me, yeah, the lender will say, I can't give you any information about that. Or the agent will say, yeah, they'll just flat out say, don't reach out to the lender for anything. You do not have permission to do it. I wish we would have put those emails out, man. This broker was so like, she just looked so dumb. This one was like a moment of glory. And she actually, the lender actually, by the end, was, on our side, and we were the listing side. But yeah, so in the contract, if we can find it, I don't know the verbiage exactly. Yeah, financing, here it is. So buyer shall, upon written request, keep seller and broker fully informed about the status of buyer's mortgage loan application, loan processing, appraisal, and loan, right? So upon written request,
buyer authorized buyer's mortgage broker lender and that to get the status and progress and release for the see. So
right.
That's it right there.
Right. So they can't give any specifics on finance or personal identifying information. But yeah, it's right there. So number one, the buyer has to keep you informed. Right. But number two, yeah, like right here, that's why I told the broker, this is why I told her, I said, so are you unilaterally revoking your buyer's permission to us in paragraph 8.2 that we can reach out to them, right? Because an agent cannot unilaterally revoke permission. This right here permits, right? A buyer authorizes buyer's mortgage broker, lender, and closing agent to disclose such status, right? So, and right here, as appropriate and allowed to seller and broker. If within, right? So, and then it goes on to say more, but this is why knowing the contract is important. Because in that case, I just said, oh, okay. And I outlined, I said, here's where it is. Right?
But the lender would not budge, Joe. He would not budge. It's like it's in the contract. You are supposed to be giving us updates on what's going on with the loan. We don't know what's going on with the loan. He refused. No, we need written, but it's in the contract. You are supposed to.
Yeah, and that's a really tough one because lenders are kind of outside of our window. Although I'm sure, and I don't, the thing is like not being a broker, and I guess we could call a mortgage broker, or not being a mortgage broker, I should say, we could call a lender and probably find out what's the recourse, but I imagine they have to follow the contracts just like we do, right? Like we can't act unilaterally outside of the contract. Well, neither can the lender, and neither can, the title company. I caught a title company one time because buyer chose title and we were on the listing side and we got into an argument and the title agent in there said, we represent the buyer in this. It was in writing. And I was like, wait a second, did I just, so I emailed back and I was like, did I just read that correctly? So you are representing, so I was like, who's representing the transaction?
Exactly.
And then the attorney jumped in and was like, whoa, no, we don't represent the buyer. Right? So understanding that the escrow agent on page 1 isn't necessarily the title company that's going to do the closing. And that page 1 is just who's holding escrow. So it's all of these little nuances, but then we have to decide what's in our client's best interest. Is it in our client's best interest for us to make this argument, right? Like you have to choose your battles. And I will, sometimes I love a good pissing match, right? Where it's like, okay, yeah, you know what, you're stupid, and I'm going to make sure people know that you don't know what you're doing. Or sometimes I'm like, okay, you know what? It's more important that we just get this closed for my customer than for me to, flex my ego and my knowledge. And this is where us as professionals really need to use that discernment. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That lender, I don't know why the lender acted like that. And that at that point, we have to figure out, okay, how important is this to my customer's side of the transaction that I need to push back, or sometimes, the battle, not fought is what the battle best won, something like that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's better just not to have the fight, but that's where we have to figure that, those things out. I think the one with the other broker, I was probably more having a pissing match than anything, because this person was extremely unpleasant from like the get-go. So I was like, and then the lender didn't like her too. So I was like, okay, but I don't know if that should even be in this recording. Maybe that should be. But that one was like, it was just hilarious to me. I remember we would just sit back and laugh at that one. But but
they were just being shady and everything. And you said it right. The issue is when also agents don't know, because we are supposed to be advising and counseling and directing our buyers and sellers. And you're right. If it is like in a situation like that, the buyer's agent should have said, listen, no, the contract says it. They're right. She's right. We have to disclose. You can't disclose your financial business, like your salary and stuff like that. They can't disclose, but the lender is authorized to give instructions, because the seller needs to know what's happening, and they are authorized to update the listing agent on what's going on. But when people don't know, and this is what happens. Not everybody, and you could tell from day one that the agent didn't really know what they were doing, and so because a lot of filling in had to happen for the agent, because they were just lacking in a lot of ways. And so they just made the transaction harder because of that. And then they weren't directing their buyer in the best way.
Yeah, and that's it. And the other thing is, that doesn't build a trusting environment. So again, like, this is not our transaction. This is not our goal. This is not our dream. This is our customer's transaction. This is our customer's goal. This is our customer's dream, right? So if we don't understand the contract and we act outside of the contract, we're not acting in their best interest, because they signed the contract. And if we did a good job, they should understand the contract. Number two, if, a successful deal is one where the buyer walks away happy and where the seller walks away happy. If your deal gets contentious, then somebody did something wrong, or somebody is doing something wrong, right? Understandably so. The buyer and seller are at opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Buyer wants to buy for the least amount of money, wants to pay as little at closing as possible. Seller wants to make the most amount of money and wants as much money in their bank account at closing as possible, right? But there's no reason why we can't come together and come to terms that are satisfactory for everybody. And when you have these pissing matches here about, that's why I'm saying choose wisely if you're going to take on that fight or not. Sometimes it's, it doesn't matter, like whatever, but other times it's like, well, I'm just going to choose not to fight that battle, because it's my customer is more important, and how my customer feels is more important than, me proving that I'm right or me proving that I'm smart. Like, we don't make contention where it doesn't need to be. Now, if there's a reason that you need to know what's going on with the lender, then push on it. If it can be let go, I say let it go. But it's all about, like, there's really should be no greater ally in a transaction than the other agent, right? And in fact, actually, everybody in that transaction should be your ally, because we are both working in the best interest of both customers to get this transaction closed, right? I want a happy buyer and I want a happy seller, and I want the lender happy, and I want the title company happy, and I want the other agent happy. I want everybody happy. If I'm causing division and strife and, frustration, I'm not really doing my job effectively, right? And then the other thing is, it's a small real estate world. So if, as an agent, we do something stupid, chances are we might run into that other agent again, because, most, producing agent does a majority of the transactions. You got a lot of onesie twosie agents, you might not run into them again. But, if you got somebody that does, 20, 30 transactions a year, it's quite likely you're going to run into that person somewhere down the road, and they're going to remember, yeah. And I've run into difficult agents, and I will tell my customer, this person is difficult. Just know going into this that this person right here is a difficult person. So just know it, right? And then just know that if you run into that agent again, they're going to go tell their customers. So that's why we cannot be like that. We cannot, right? We're professionals through and through. We know the contract. We know when to dig our heels and fight. And we also know, when it's better to just walk away and live to fight another day, right? But it's always about the customer, never about us. And it's always about, getting this, achieving whatever it is that the customer wants to achieve. Not our dream, not our home. It's not for us. So, anything else to add to that, or does anybody else have anything, any questions, thoughts, concerns, comments? All righty. Well, that concludes our second in our series, how to be an effective buyer's agent. Next week is going to be another roundtable week, so I hope to see everybody there. And this is where we would talk about if that were a problem live and in person. Hey, I'm dealing with the lender, and maybe I don't have all the answers, but that's why we have other agents in the room that can give us answers. We had one of our agents at the last one, that Asia. She was given some mastermind tips on doing cold calling, how she does listing presentations. If you guys missed that one, you missed a good one. That one I was like, wow, like Asia took that one to the next level. I wish she came to way more of those because she had a lot of value to add. That was amazing. Other than that, shameless plug. Oh, remember this. So if you're ever wondering how you can make more money in real estate, this is really important. For me, even. It's really important for me because we want to grow as a brokerage. But it's also important for you. If you ever wondering how to make more money in real estate without having to sell so many houses, it's through our Reap Rewards program, right? If you sponsor an agent, right? If you give an agent this QR code and say, hey, come check out this brokerage, this is where I work, that agent now goes under, you, and every time that agent has a sale, you get 10% of that. So what I would say is if you bring an agent in, you should also work to help that agent get more transactions or convert at a higher rate. And when they do convert and they get a contract, you should also help them to sell that property. And the reason being is because there's money in it for you too, right? So, and I definitely want to talk about this more down the road, but we've got a few agents in our brokerage that have sponsored, more than one person. They brought in more than one agent. Well, it shouldn't end there. I mean, obviously we're going to help them. That's part of our onboarding process, and that's part of what we're working on to improve, is to help get agents more productive. But at the same time, there is a benefit to the sponsoring agent to keep in touch with that other agent and make sure that they're actually converting leads, they're actually doing things, because when they have a closing, then you also get money, right? You get part of our split. So that is one way is bring in agents and help them. We are working on the downline math to make it more competitive and advantageous. That'll roll out someday. I don't know when. We just have to make sure we do it the right way because it's a little complicated. But just keep that in mind. Reap Rewards. You can send them the QR code, and then we'll reach out to them from there. But really, that's it. Our next Ask the Broker is in 2 weeks. That's going to be on the 26th. That's where we're going to do part 3 of the buyer's journey, how to be an effective buyer's agent. I hope to see you guys all there. That one's going to be probably kind of good because we're going to talk about negotiating and those strategies. So we went way over on time. I hate going over on time. Thank you all for bearing with me. sticking around through the end of this and listening to me ramble, because I can do that a lot, as I'm doing right now. Hope to see you all soon. Don't stay stuck. You know what a lobby room is. If we can ever do anything for you, please don't hesitate to tell us. Thank you all.